Hello, my name is Stephen Thomas with BizTalkGurus.com. Today I'll be talking about the flat file disassembler output options. The flat file disassembler is used inside a receive pipeline to convert flat file documents into XML documents. Once we have our data converted into XML documents, they can be more easily handled inside an orchestration or inside additional components for further processing inside of BizTalk. Now, typical flat file documents will have a header and sometimes a trailer record with typically many different detailed records in between them. So you'll have a single header, 10, 20, maybe 1,000 detailed records followed by a trailer, and this would arrive into BizTalk as a single batch or interchange. Now we have a couple different output options for how we want BizTalk to handle this single flat file document. We can have BizTalk split it all up and debatch it into single records. With that, it'll actually strip off the header and trailer and give us out all our detailed records as single XML documents. We can have all of our records together. Again, this will still strip off the header and trailer, but we will get all of our detailed records out as a single batch. And our last option is we can have our records, our header, and our trailer all together in a single document out of the flat file disassembler. So all this does is essentially convert the flat file document into XML documents. Something else that's important to point out about all these options, it is an all or nothing process. If a single record has a bad character or isn't meeting our schema specifications, the whole process will fail and the whole pipeline will fail. In BizTalk Server 2006, this is changing, and you will have the ability to suspend single records inside a flat file disassembler. But in 2004, it's all or nothing. So let's hop over to an example real quick. This is based on the example that you can download through our website about the flat file disassembler options. The first one I'm going to show you is breaking everything up into single records. You can see here we have a header schema that is defined, and we have a single record schema that is defined. Now, in our input document, it is just one single document, but we actually have to define it as two separate pieces since we want to actually strip the header off. So here in our single record, we have our base defined with our body records. This body record will be equivalent to the detailed records inside the flat file document. Now, the whole key to get single records out of the flat file disassembler versus everything together in a single batch is this property down here called min-and-max occurs, which is located under the general tab of the properties on the body node is where we want to check that out at. Down here we have max occurs set to the default, which is 1. When this is set to the default of 1, the flat file disassembler will create a new record, a new message for every single detailed record that it encounters inside our single batch input. Now, we use both of these inside the flat file disassembler. Here inside the pipeline, we would configure the document schema as our single record schema and our header schema as our single header schema as defined. Now, our second option is to have all our body records out in a single XML document. Now, here this is the same schema we had before, and we would also use the same header schema that we defined before, but here on our body record, you'll notice that our general property max occurs is set to unbounded. When this is set to unbounded, the flat file disassembler will produce a single output record with our data in it. Now we can come over here and see that our flat file disassembler is set up the same way as our first disassembler, except this time we have defined a different document schema that points to our one with the max occurs unbounded on the data record. Now, if we wanted everything together in a single message, both our header and all our many body records together, we could define our schema like this, where we have our base schema, then our header and our body all defined in the same single schema. And then here under our body, we have a max occurs of unbounded, and this will produce all our body records inside a single document with the header preserved actually inside the document. The first two samples we actually looked at would actually strip off the header, and we have the option to put it in the message context if we wanted. Let's jump back here, and here if we selected preserve header and set that to true, it would actually take the header document and put the whole thing inside the message context that we could get out later if we wanted to essentially put the header back when we're sending the document out of BizTalk, or if we needed to extract out or parse out the header to get out a batch number. We could do that if we so desired. So now with our all document, where we want everything together in a single document, our received pipeline, here where the flat file disassembler is defined, no longer has a header document defined, but instead we just have our single document schema that defines our document that includes both our header and our body with the unbounded records in there. So that's a very quick overview of the flat file disassembler sample that's available from our website. Now, a few other things I want to point out here is we have some additional flat file schema properties that are available for us. Now, if you're not using BizTalk SP1, these schema properties have to be manually added to the XSD by opening it up inside of Notepad and then adding these properties in there. If you are running BizTalk Server Service Pack 1, these are available for you inside the UI. And if we go to a schema, click on the schema tab, we will see these properties available. Early termination, set there. And we have look ahead depth, parser optimization, speed or complexity, and suppress empty nodes. Now the highlights of these is allow early termination. This will allow some flat file documents you receive will have trailing spaces removed, and if you're doing a positional document and you've defined your length of 200 positions, when you start tacking off spaces at the end and you might only get 50 characters in that record, BizTalk doesn't really like that. But if you set allow early termination to true, once it hits the end of the document, it finds the carriage return line feed or whatever your trailing delimiter is, it will just go on to the next record. We also have parsing modes. We have speed versus complexity, and we have suppress empty nodes, which will, when BizTalk converts the flat file to XML document, anything that has the default pad character, as that's the only contents of the node, will actually be suppressed. So if you had a pad characters of spaces for, let me go back to our schema. If you had default pad characters of spaces for phone number, and it came through as just 10 spaces, blank spaces, inside our positional flat file document, and without setting this property, we'd actually get a blank phone node, and technically it'd probably have 10 spaces in it. But if we suppress empty nodes, since our default pad character is space, our phone node won't even exist inside the document. And things you should know. Working with flat file documents, you always have to have a custom pipeline component because you have to use the flat file disassembler, and that's not anything that's pre-built for us. Optional nodes really slows down processing, typically because you have to switch from the speed to the complexity parsing modes. Watch out for misparsing when working with optional nodes, and that leads us into our last point, is always test through BizTalk. Don't rely on the schema and mapper editor inside Visual Studios to do your testing. I have seen occurrences where they behave differently and you get different output. With that, I'd like to conclude our quick and brief overview of the flat file disassembler. Be sure to check out our website at biztalkgurus.com for all the latest samples and information.